The rain began before sunrise, not the kind of rain that came down hard and disappeared quickly. This rain was cold, steady, and gray. It covered the sidewalks, filled the gutters, and made the whole city feel like it had decided to stay in bed. But he could not stay in bed. His alarm had gone off at 5:45, just like it did every morning. He got dressed in the dark, made instant coffee, and left his small apartment with his work bag over one shoulder. By 6:20, he was standing at the bus stop. Rain tapped against the plastic roof above him. His shoes were already wet around the edges. Cars rushed past, spraying water from the street. He looked down at his phone. Another message from his manager. "Don't forget, we need you to stay late today." He sighed and put his phone away. His job was not terrible. That was the problem. It was not terrible enough to force him to leave. He worked in a warehouse, packing boxes and moving inventory. The pay covered rent, food, and just enough bills to keep him from falling behind. But every month felt the same. Wake up, take the bus, work all day, come home tired, scroll through his phone, sleep, repeat. For years, he told himself it was temporary. I'll figure something out. I'll find a better job. I'll learn something new. I'll start soon. But soon had become a word with no date attached to it. The bus arrived, and he climbed on. The windows were fogged from wet jackets and tired breath. Everyone looked half awake. Some people stared at their phones. Some slept against the window. Some looked out at the rain, as if they were trying to remember why they were doing all of this. He took his usual seat near the back. That was when he noticed the older man. The man got on at the next stop. He wore a dark raincoat, carried a plain backpack, and sat 2 seats ahead. He looked older, maybe in his late 50s or early 60s. His hands were rough, and his shoulders looked tired. But instead of taking out a phone, he pulled out a small notebook and a tablet. Every morning, he did the same thing. He put on headphones. He opened a lesson. He wrote notes. At first, he did not think much about it. But then he saw the man again the next day. And the day after that. Always on the bus. Always studying. One morning, curiosity got the better of him. "What are you learning?" he asked. The older man looked up and smiled. "Computer support," he said. "Trying to get certified." He laughed quietly, almost embarrassed. "At my age," he nodded toward the tablet. "Figured I should stop saying, 'I'm too old to change my life.'" He did not know what to say. So he just nodded. But those words stayed with him all day. Stop saying, "I'm too old to change my life." At work, he could not stop thinking about them. He thought about the man studying on a crowded bus before sunrise. He thought about the excuses he told himself every day. He was too tired. He was too busy. He did not have the money. He did not know where to begin. But the older man was tired too. The older man had a job too. The older man was standing in the same rain, riding the same bus, living a life that probably had its own problems. And still, he had found 30 minutes to move forward. That evening, after staying late at work, he came home exhausted. He threw his bag on the floor, heated up leftovers, and sat on the couch. His phone was already in his hand. For a few minutes, he scrolled without thinking. Then he stopped. Across the room was an old laptop he barely used. It had been sitting on a small table for months. He stared at it. A familiar voice came into his mind. "I'll start soon." He almost laughed. Then he put his phone down. He opened the laptop. The screen took forever to turn on. The battery was low. The internet was slow. He did not know what he wanted to learn or where to start. But he searched anyway. He found a free course about basic computer skills. He watched one lesson. It lasted 20 minutes. That was all. No dramatic music played. No one congratulated him. His life did not suddenly change. When he went to sleep, his apartment was still small. His job was still waiting. The rain was still falling outside. But something felt different. For the first time in a long time, he had done something for his future instead of only thinking about it. The next morning, he saw the older man on the bus again. The man opened his tablet and began taking notes. He pulled out his own phone, opened the course, and watched another lesson. It felt strange at first. People around him were scrolling through videos, listening to music, or staring out the window. He felt awkward, like everyone could see him trying, but nobody cared. And after a while, neither did he. Days turned into weeks. Every commute became a small classroom. 20 minutes on the way to work. 20 minutes on the way home. Some days, he was too tired to focus. Some days, the bus was crowded and loud. Some days, he wanted to put on music and forget about everything. But he remembered the older man. So he kept going. He learned how to write better emails. He learned how spreadsheets worked. He learned basic technical skills. He updated his resume, one sentence at a time. At night, after dinner, he spent another half hour practicing. Not every night. Some nights he failed. Some nights he came home so tired that he fell asleep on the couch with the laptop still open. But he stopped calling those nights proof that he could not change. He learned to begin again. The next day, months passed. One rainy morning, he stood at the same bus stop, under the same plastic roof, with the same wet shoes. But he was not the same person. He looked at his phone and saw an email. A company had invited him for an interview. It was an entry-level office job. The pay was better. The hours were better. It was not his dream job, but it was a door. He read the email twice. Then he looked up. The older man was walking toward the bus stop, rain falling on his coat. For a moment, he wanted to tell him. He wanted to say, "You have no idea what you did." But the man simply smiled and stood beside him. "How's the studying going?" he asked. He smiled back. "Still going," he said. The older man nodded. "That's the important part." The bus arrived. They climbed on together. A few weeks later, he got the job. He did not become rich overnight. He did not suddenly have every answer. He still had bills. He still had hard days. He still stood at bus stops in the rain. But now, he carried something different with him. Belief. Not the kind of belief that comes from watching someone else succeed. The kind that comes from proving to yourself, day after day, that you can keep going. Years later, he would remember that rainy bus stop. He would remember the cold mornings, the long shifts, and the old laptop that took forever to start. But most of all, he would remember one simple lesson. Your life does not always change because of one big opportunity. Sometimes it changes because you decide that your commute, your lunch break, your evenings, and your ordinary days are worth more than excuses. You may not have the perfect conditions. You may be tired. You may feel behind. You may be standing in the rain, waiting for a bus, wondering if your life will ever be different. But start anyway. Learn one thing. Take one step. Use the time you have, because one day you may look back at the hardest season of your life and realize it was also the moment you stopped waiting to be saved. It was the moment you started building your way out. Asterisk.